There we go. Yay!
You're back.
Yay.
Okay.
Hey.
Good.
Perfect.
Nice to meet you.
They're
So what are
waking
your
up.
names, kids?
Do you want to go in a circle? Just tell them your first name and what grade?
Andrew, 4th grade.
Wyatt, 5th grade.
Darcy, 5th grade. Emily, 4th grade. Maddie, 4th grade. Leo, 4th grade.
Wade, 5th grade.
Miles, 4th grade. Candace, 5th grade.
Oh, lovely. Oh, great. All right. So I'm Amy. I'm the Aqua Dragons lady. And sometimes people call me Dragon Lady. I put that on my business card for fun.
Fun nickname. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I bet you've got lots of questions, and I want to go through like your experiment and see how your Aqua Dragons are. But Mrs. Tucker asked me to tell you a little bit about myself and how Aqua Dragons came to be, so you could hear a bit of the behind the scenes story. And it's kind of interesting. So it was about more than 20 years ago now. I was working with in a completely different business, and I'd come from graphic design. So I used to illustrate and do, catalogs and things like logos for companies. And I was working as a project manager in that industry. And my boss sent me a tank with these cool little fish in them, the Artemia. And that brand was actually called Sea Monkeys. So at the time, I think you've heard about sea monkeys as well. Yeah. So I thought they were so cool. I thought that was like the best pet ever. And I thought it was fascinating that most adults and kids had never ever seen or heard of them. And people started coming over to my flat to have a look at this tank and to see what was going on. And it was before digital cameras, but we were literally taking photographs with a camera. And people started asking me, can you get me some? Can you get me some? So that Christmas, I wrote to a company in America and got some product and took them out at Christmas time and gave them to nieces and nephews and friends. And they all had like an amazing time growing them and asking lots of questions. And sea monkeys don't explain a lot of the science behind it. So we had to look into that ourselves. And it's really fascinating, which I'm sure you guys are all learning about now. And then as the story goes on, I thought that was so cool. I ended up getting in touch with the company in America and said, I want to bring this product to Europe. And they supported us, and we started to work together, and we were importing product and selling it to different toy stores like Toys R Us. And that went really well for a while. And then the owner, the guy who kind of invented the concept, he passed away. And after that, they started to have some QC problems. So QC is like quality control problems. And I went over to America and I visited his widow, so his wife in Maryland, and said, hey, we got to fix this up and we should make it much more educational because like kids can learn all about amazing things like the way that they reproduce, and their anatomy and how they've been on Earth for hundreds of millions of years, and they really haven't evolved, which I guess must mean that they're like a perfect little creature, very adapted. And anyway, they weren't really interested in fixing things, and I had written a whole business plan because I loved the idea, the animals and explaining the science behind it. And at that point, we decided that we would go off on our own and become like a competitor. So, like you guys like have Coke and you have Pepsi in America, and they're both cola drinks, but they compete, right? Like, so maybe you go to one restaurant, you can get Coke, and you go to another one, you can get Pepsi. So we were like, okay, we want to be like that. We want to be the better brand and see if we can have it more educational, more fun for kids. So I spent a few years developing that with a biologist, and we made our formulas, which are a little bit different to the sea monkeys one, even though it's the same animal inside. And we launched into the market, and we started selling in lots, first of all around Europe, but then we also sold to Australia and then to America and to different countries around the world. Now we're on sale in, more than 40 countries now. And it's gone really, really well. And I think the consumers, so the consumers are people who buy the tanks and set them up in their homes to have them as pets, really appreciate that we explain all the science behind the animals. So I'm so excited that you guys have got involved with this project as well, so we can work on that together, because I think it's a cool idea to see. Let's observe what happens when they're in zero gravity. So yeah, that's a little bit of a bit of the backstory behind it. So as I said, I used to be my first kind of job was a graphic designer, and then I also studied to become a psychologist. So do you guys know what a psychologist is? Okay, a psychologist is like it's the study of the brain, the mind, and human behavior. But there are psychologists that also work with animals. So it's very interesting, and learning about psychology also helps when we develop products, so we can develop them so they're age appropriate, to understand the different development stages of humans and animals. So there we go. So that's a little bit about the background of how Aqua Dragons came to be. And as you guys have seen, we've got these products available in America and in other countries. So yeah, I guess, should we talk about your questions or your experiment?
Sure. I want to tie something into you guys. We've been talking a lot this year about innovation and habits of an innovator. You think that Miss Holden is an innovator?
Yeah.
Right?
Made up something.
What are some things she did that made her an innovator?
She took something original and turned it into something new. She took sea monkeys, mutated them a little bit, and it turned them into Aqua Dragons.
Yeah. What are some other habits of an innovator that we talked about that she has? Go ahead.
She took a risk.
She took a risk.
Gone bad.
Right. But she took a risk, and it turned out awesome, and it's benefiting kids all over the world. Emily? She kept staying curious. One of the habits of an innovator is always ask questions and stay curious. So one of the reasons, besides, helping with our experiment, is she's the perfect example of what we've been learning about with our habits of an innovator. You've done amazing things, and we're just so excited to start off, with that piece to it. And our theme this year, what's our theme for our school? Inspiring ingenuity. So also goes right along with what happened with the Aqua Dragons. And when we did these experiments, guys, who can say what 3 things we tried first? What 3 animals? Andrew?
Aqua Dragons, Traps, Sea Monkeys.
Aqua Dragons, Traps, and Sea Monkeys, because we wanted something that was not a large vertebrae, that was easy, small, go in water. And what did we find out when we did those experiments? Miles?
Sea Monkeys and Traps just died.
Yeah.
They didn't even hatch.
Well, we hatched like a handful of sea monkeys, right?
Traps
Traps didn't hatch because we fed them and oxygenated them correctly.
Yeah.
But I think it was just like a bad batch.
The triops didn't hatch.
And we
So-
tried it again.
I think we fed them too much.
You
So
think we
that
overfed?
algae, took the oxygen out of the water, so then they couldn't.
So yes, we've learned a lot. So the people in the lab coats, we have different teams here for the experiment. If you're in a lab coat, you want to tell her what team you're on? Go ahead, Darcy. What's your team?
We're the biologist
Yep.
part of it, and we hatch the animals and make sure that they're fed, oxygenated, and just living still.
So we had 3 biologists where they're the ones that are really deep dive into the science. The whole class researched all 3 species, and then we focused on Aqua Dragons once we decided that was our experiment that we were going to send up. And then these 3 ladies, they're in charge of their care. How many tanks did we set up yesterday?
6.
5. and we have 2 in here. So we're up to 7. We are growing. We sent 2 more off to our local middle school today. The middle school wanted to get involved. They found out about it. And then we've sent 2 to Pennsylvania to a school up there that's going to do some experimenting and send back data to us as well. So
Wow.
it's spreading. I want to give you the rest of the team real quick, and then we'll get their questions. Leo, if you want to raise your hand a minute. If you're on Leo's team, raise your hand. And you want to tell her what your team is for the experiment?
So our team is the mission patches. So first, like space missions and NASA missions all have mission patches, and we decided we wanted to have a mission patch for this.
So that's a surprise. The unveiling will come soon, but we're working on a mission patch. We have some nods, more than one, to Aqua Dragons hidden on our patch. So we're going to see if you guys can find them. And then our next team, you guys in the front, what is your team?
The helicopter team, and it's where some everybody in the school made helicopters, and people voted on which ones they thought were the best and would do something interesting in microgravity. We're going to see what happens to them.
So there's a side experiment because the Aqua Dragons are stationary. We've made paper helicopters. So we're going to drop paper helicopters in microgravity. We've partnered with Nigeria. So we have Nigerian students that taught my kids how to make the helicopters and vice versa. And then we're going to see how they go. And our last team, Camden, what is your team? Your teammate's absent, but your team is
16 different lights and fabrics. See which one would be like dark enough to let the light through, and we can see how they react to the light and darkness.
So they're the structural engineering of the actual experiment, how far, and we had some other people join that team, how far the camera needs to be to get good footage. If you will hold up a tank, Maddie, the tanks we had designed by St. Thomas Academy, but the girl that's designed them, she's absent today, but she drew them on a piece of paper. We sent it to a high school team and they fabricated the tanks for us. So we have custom tanks for them as well. So do you?
That's amazing.
There you go. There's our synopsis.
Yeah, well done. That's like, it's quite a complex experiment that you guys are teaming up to work on there. So
Yes,
I'm
we
proud
started
of you
in
guys.
September, right?
Yep, maybe
Yeah. September, October-ish, and we fly in May. So we're about one month away.
Yay! That will be so excited. I can't wait till we get all the footage and we can review it together.
It's gonna be awesome.
So what about testing out a little bit the conditions in the classrooms? Are you guys gonna do some, like, I talked with the biologist last week and he said, you could swing it around. So if you go in a circle and use the force of centrifuge to see what will happen with the Aqua Dragons in the tank, that might be a little bit of pre-testing that you can have a look at to see how they react and see how the type of footage is going to come out. So
what do you guys think about that? Do you think how could we
should take down the lid before
you think we should take down the lid? I think that might be a good idea. Yes. How would we record like
I can carry this box.
this box? So you think we should take,
might be able to
I mean, it would be a good test because it's going to go upside down and sideways in microgravity anyway. So turn on the camera, turn it all on and swing it.
Yeah. See what happens.
What do you
See
guys
what
think?
happens if the footage comes out in focus.
Why are you nervous?
Because I feel like the Aqua Dragons are gonna get hurt. And like when you shake something, then it's important.
Well, there's a lady right here that's probably a great question for her, and she can probably give us some insight so we don't have to worry about that. Why don't you ask her that question?
When you shake it and then you open it, are the Aqua Dragons gonna go?
They're going to be hurt or injured.
No, probably not. So I'm really glad you asked the question because with everything in a science experiment, ethics is super important to make sure that, nobody's getting hurt or is going to have some kind of trauma from what's going on. But let's talk about the Aqua Dragons specifically. In the wild, they live in big salt lakes and in all the seas and oceans around the planet. So there's really no saltwater body of water that doesn't have Artemia salina, which is, Aqua Dragons is a brand name, but that's what they are. already in it. And then, as you know, in the ocean, sometimes, because of because it can be windy, or because you've got what do you call it, the tides that are moving, or different sort of like swells of water that moves from some parts to others. It's really normal for these kind of animals to be in water that can be, moving quite a lot. So I think it's probably not going to bother them at all if you swing them around a little bit, or they're in the water's sloshing around a little bit. I think that's going to be completely normal for them. And then the other thing is they have an exoskeleton. So have you studied the anatomy yet? So the exoskeleton means they're hard on the outside and they're soft on the inside. Which means that's probably fine as well. If they bump into each other, or they bump into the wall of the tank or something like that, it's unlikely to really hurt them much. I do think, though, from my experience, that when we're working with the pipette, I don't know if I have one here. It's important not to suck them up when that's a small-ended pipette, and when you use that to expulse air into the water,
Right. Just don't suck them.
That's great. Exactly. Yeah, and then exactly, you know how to do it. So I try to warn people, don't suck them up in there. Just pull the pipette back out and then release the well so that the air can fill back up. And that will keep them safe, because I think with the tiny hole in that pipette, if they were to get sucked in, they could be injured, and we wouldn't want that, because we want to be respectful with all living things. So yeah, I think that's really good. But I wouldn't worry about the well-being of them just with the movement of the water. I think they'll be fine.
So my structural engineer, Camden, and your partner, you're gonna have to figure out, we do this anyway, how to secure all of this. So when we swing it in a circle, nothing breaks. Like the camera is in here, the Aqua Dragons are in here, but when we're on the zero gravity flight, is this box gonna necessarily be just like this all the time? No, it's not. I mean, I'm gonna try to hook it to the floor, hopefully with Velcro, so it does stay stable. But as we're taking off and things, it could go in different directions. So that's gonna be important.
We fill the tanks up all the way.
Oh, good question. Ask that a little bit louder.
Should we fill the tanks up all the way when we go to
Oh, I didn't hear the end of that. What was that?
One more time left.
Are we supposed to fill up the tanks all the way when we go to microgravity?
I think that's a really good question. I think it's probably not going to matter too much to the Aqua Dragons themselves, but it might be helpful for your footage if it's a fairly full tank, because otherwise, if the water gets really kind of messy with bubbles everywhere, and it might be harder to see what's happening in the tank. Whereas if you have it fairly full, there won't be so many of those bubbles moving around in the water. But that's interesting. We thought about that a little bit when we had a chat, Mrs. Tucker and I, and we were wondering if we should do two tanks, one where it was very full and one where it was maybe half full, and then you'd see the difference. But to come to a conclusion on that, I think you should test it in the classroom and then see what works best for the footage and what works best for the Aqua Dragons, and then you can decide how you want to take it up on the flight.
So I came in today and we didn't trim it yet, but we have our rubber stopper with the hole drilled in with the coffee filter. And I got some looks from these guys like, why is there a hole in the cork and what are you doing? And we didn't meet since I talked to you about the advice from your space biologist. So if you could explain to them a little bit why we had to drill a hole and put in a coffee filter, because they're worried. They're like, water's going to come out the top. You think you know?
Yeah.
Oh, well, never mind. Some of them do know. All right. Why don't you say
Tell
what
me
you
a
think
theory.
first?
The pressure, like how you said when you had dragons on a flight, like Aqua Dragons, and you open the container, and like the pressure killed them, and also maybe because you can't oxygenate them on the flight.
That's right. So that happened a long time ago. I was going to a trade fair, and I had a glass jar. And the glass, of course, glass is very solid. It's not flexible at all. But the tin lid, sometimes like when you open a jar of jam and it goes, and it goes like a popping sound. That's because there's like a difference of pressure, and so the air either escapes or quickly goes in, and that's what makes that sound. So that happened after I took them on a flight, and all the Aqua Dragons died. It was really sad. So the next time I went on a flight, I took Aqua Dragons again, and I had a little hole in the lid so that if there were pressure changes, and because of the tin lid is kind of flexible. So, it had kind of sunken in a little bit. So I think if we have this hole in the lid there, just enough to let the air pressure equalize, then it hopefully the water won't come out, or not very much of the water will come out. And then it will fix then the Aqua Dragons having a problem. And with regards to running out of oxygen, that's true. You do need to keep your tanks, with the hole in the lid, or take the lid off so that the oxygen can kind of, like, the water can reoxygenate, and that's why you put the bubbles in as well. But it's unlikely that in just a few hours they would run out of oxygen because they're tiny, So the other thing we talked about was having a little bit less salty water. So, when you set up your tanks, you get the packet of the packet of eggs, and it's like mainly white with some tiny little brown specks. So the brown specks are the eggs, and the white part is sea salt. And there's a couple of other ingredients as well, because it's kind of hard to replicate, the stability of what is, large bodies of water like in the sea and in the ocean in something that's so small. It's really hard to keep a stable environment. So, that's why we put all the ingredients in there so that you can make it up. But what we talked about with the biologist was when the water is very salty, it holds less oxygen. And when it's a bit less salty, it can hold more oxygen. And then he pointed out, which was really interesting, the city of Venice. Have you heard of the city of Venice? It's built on the sea. Yeah, and they got like big wooden trunks, and they drilled them into the seabed, and then they built a city on top of that. And those tree trunks, which anybody would think would rot away, because if you see normally wood, when it gets wet, it kind of rots away. But because there wasn't very much oxygen in the salty seawater, because Venice is built over the Mediterranean Ocean, those wooden pillars became petrified, and they're practically like stone now. After, I don't know, it's like 1,000 years or something that Venice has been there, very long time. So anyway, the point of that is that if we have very salty water, there will be not much oxygen in the water, and then you would have to be very careful about keeping the lid on for periods of time. But if we add a little bit more bottled water to make it a little bit less salty, that should, and then oxygenate before the experiment, then they shouldn't have a problem with the level of oxygen in the water. That's our theory anyway. So we'll be, of course, testing all of those things out when you do your experiment.
I will say the 2 tanks up here, one we put in on Wednesday, and then we saw them Friday? We hatched them at SOAR, and we saw little things moving Friday. So fed them, oxygenated. This tank they put in on Friday, and then we had a weekend, right? So nobody was here. So when we came in Monday, we saw some of them and put in the food. The tank that we could immediately put food in and oxygenate has, you guys can see, hundreds more, right? Aqua Dragon than the tank that we couldn't do that. So we're already learning. Probably we shouldn't put eggs in on a Friday, because we have to be there to make sure to oxygenate. Oxygenate them.
How will the thing with straws fit in there? This is barely.
That's a good question. Her question was, how is this gonna fit in here if it's barely fitting? What needs to happen to this?
Oh,
Yeah, we need to trim it. This needs to be trimmed. I'm not doing it all for you. I'm not giving you a power drill, but I will give this to you, and now you can. It was hard because this is so small, right? And it doesn't really fit in a vice grip. So I actually, I have a cousin who does work with, he works with tools all the time, and he held it in his hand and like power drill it, which made me even nervous to get the hole in there.
Yeah, dangerous
So-
with your fingers.
Yeah, very dangerous, but we'll trim it and then the lid will go on and then it will be good to go.
Okay, that's
Okay.
great. So I see that you're fairly well set up for that experiment. We can just do some testing in the classroom to see how you go ahead. All right. And then, wait, any other questions about the Aqua Dragons?
Oh, what if the Aqua Dragons get stuck inside the straw? No.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they'll be able to fit inside the straw. It looks pretty small, but
And
You said that.
it'll be cut level, right? Wade talked about trimming both ends, so there won't be anything like sticking out for them to swim in, right?
Yeah.
And there
They
would be
do
some
them
inside the straw. They do some.
If they do what?
Some of them won't.
Some of them won't.
Even if some of them do, there'll still be others.
Oh, there'll still be others that don't get stuck. Okay, so sacrifice some for the good of the
for the
many.
greater good. And that's a good question, though. You know, I was thinking you could put a little filter over the end of it, like a little kind of a polyester fabric that would allow the air to pass through, but then the Aqua Dragons couldn't, if that's a concern. Or think of any other possible solution if that's a worry.
What'd you say, Maddie? Just thinking out loud. Okay. Camden, what's your question?
Putting the fabric over like the Aqua Dragon is gonna be a problem because you're supposed to put them in like sunlight anyway.
Okay, so his question is, at one point during the experiment, we are going to be testing the light, right? And seeing how they respond to light. And we have a little pen light that we're going to put, but this is attached to the floor. And the next thing that Camden and his team are working on is getting our fabric. So they tested fabric and we had all different types of fabric and they found one where the light comes through, but it keeps it kind of dark. So his question was, when we put the cover on, right, and we're testing if they're responding to the light, is it going to matter that it's dark because they need the sunlight to grow?
Oh, for a little period of time, it won't matter. So the Aqua Dragons are used to living like in normal earth conditions where it's dark all night and then it's sunny, usually sunny during the day, or at least luminous during the day. So when they're in the dark for a short period of time, that's completely normal and safe for them. And that will be a great way to check, you know, when you shine the light on them, if they head towards the light or if they can, because in zero gravity, we don't know exactly, you know, how are they going to be able to swim as normal. So a good way to test that ahead of time is also to do that test here in the classroom and check that they are able to swim to the light and then compare between the condition of when you're on the ground versus when you're in the flight. That would be interesting to know. So I know when I've tried it before, they generally do swim towards the light.
And we tested that in here. We didn't have the fabric, right? But we turned off the lights. And Maddie, I think you put the flashlight and we got a video of them going towards the flashlight. We didn't have the fabric in here.
Oh, so, but then do you think enough light will filter through the fabric?
So Camden tested it. We put an iPad and recorded video, right? And we found the fabric. We had like felt and flannel and we had tons of different fabric types. And this, it's like, this is a stretchy fabric that keeps it dark. It's also fun, but also lets the light come in. So this was tested. That might have been, you might have been on another team for that, but Camden found that this was the best one for light, which is good. And we did, like we mentioned with our previous batch, because this is our second, these are our experiment Aqua Dragons, right? But we already hatched a batch. They lived for a while. The last two passed away at the 6-month mark. So they lived for a really long
that's
time.
a really long life for an Aqua Dragon, honestly.
Yeah.
We tend to, people ask this question often, and we tend to say they live about 90 days. So it takes about 21 days. So that's 3 weeks just to get from that egg stage up to the adult stage. And then once they're adults, they normally live for another 2 months, maybe 3 months if the conditions are perfect. So that's a really good lifespan if you had life in a tank for 6 months. That's
had great
amazing.
caregivers, yeah. So hopefully the reason what we wanted to hatch them right away is we need to start experimenting again with the actual live aqua dragons. So hopefully soon, in a couple weeks, we have spring break. We have things coming up. Don't worry, I'm coming in over spring break. I will take care of them. I will oxygenate. But that way, when we come back from spring break, we really have 2 weeks until the flight, and we're going to be all in with all the testing that needs to be done as much as we can do. And then we'll report on the flight too. Darcy.
Don't they need oxygen?
So I'm going to come in every other day and give them a lot of oxygen, which hopefully will suffice. I mean, they've lived for the other batch lived for quite a few days without oxygen. We just pump a lot in before we go. And
Yeah.
if I'm not wrong, like swishing tanks adds a
That
lot
can
of
be
oxygen,
helpful.
right?
Yeah. So just
We
like
haven't done
make
that
sure the
yet.
lid is off, first, so that the air that's in the tank can like refresh, and then you can close the lid and either put your fingers on the holes or tape them up,
Oh.
and then you can just put them from one tank into another tank and back. That will also
you talking about-
do it.
You're talking about shaking this?
Yeah. Yep. Probably the safest way is if you have two tanks, just tip into one recipient, back into the other one. It makes like a cool waterfall. They go for a little ride. Yeah,
I
that
love
would
it.
do.
I have a lot of these. So
Yeah.
maybe this would be a great way to really oxygenate, you know,
Mhm.
because that would put more oxygen than us pumping in bubbles, right?
It would, and then there's a third option as well, is that you can actually buy bubble pumps that are for aquariums. So if you
Okay.
need to go away for a couple of weeks on spring break or however many days that is, you could set up a pump,
Yeah.
and then you'd only have to check that the battery is still working
Okay.
after a few days. Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. Andrew, I
What if they try to reproduce during the flight?
mean, they might.
During the flight.
I don't think that would work. I think if they reproduced during the flight, then the Aqua Dragon babies wouldn't be able to function.
Well, you're talking about two. Oh, so you think if they reproduce during the flight, when they come back,
When some people took jellyfish into space, when they reproduced, and when the baby
Jellyfish?
baby jellyfish came back, they couldn't move right.
oh,
So
I didn't know about that experiment. So you've read about an experiment where jellyfish reproduced in space, came back, the baby jellyfish didn't swim correctly.
Yeah.
Huh.
They didn't really do anything.
So maybe
Wow.
the aqua dragons, if they do reproduce, we can learn something more than
Well,
we
yeah.
did before.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great thought. I didn't even think about that. Like how they'll if they'll swim differently if they were reproducing in space and then the eggs hatch when they come back to Earth. Even if some of the eggs hatch while they're up in the microgravity flight, I'm not sure about that either. Now, Miles, this is not space, right? It's microgravity.
Yeah, but still.
But it's still the same
Yeah.
environment.
So I think maybe if they reproduce, even if they're born and eggs are not alive,
Yeah.
they still might not work correctly. They might not even hatch.
They might not have that. They're good theories.
See, that's a question. That's a really good question. It's thinking ahead. What's going to happen after the flight, which is super fascinating because we don't know, because you guys are going to be the first people to actually do this experiment. So you will contribute to the body of knowledge of biology by finding out about this, and we'll have to check on that afterwards. What I can tell you is that even though live Aqua Dragons hadn't been, sent into zero gravity, we did send up a video. I think you might have seen it already, and if not, you can have a look.
They didn't yet, no.
Okay, so this is something that you guys should have a look on. We have it on our YouTube channel. We sent a payload of Aqua Dragons eggs up into near space, and they reached about 31.5 kilometers up into the atmosphere. In fact, they reached the edge of the atmosphere, so they were in the last layer of the stratosphere. And how did we do that? We had a big helium balloon, and the balloon was so big Oh yeah, there you go. So that's also explained in the instructions on that product, but you've got to have a look at the video. The balloon was like big, like it was like big like a classroom. So it was almost like a hot air balloon, but it wasn't filled with air, it was filled with helium. And so the helium took the payload up, and we had a GoPro then as well. And we were filming the kind of like the basket with the eggs, which were inside it. And they were in a polystyrene case so that they didn't get too cold, because it gets really cold. We measured the temperature, the speed, the height, and I can't remember if there were any other metrics. And when they got up into what's called near space, because of the vacuum of space, there's no gases or matter in space. And then the helium expands and it bursts the balloon, and then they came tumbling back down. And then as they came down, they had a little parachute to slow them down, so it didn't fall on somebody's house or fall on a car or hurt somebody. And it was being tracked, so it had like a GPS tracker on it, and there were people with me as well. We were driving around in a ute with this iPad, which was tracking where it was going, and we were trying to get as close as we could. And then we had to go into a field and climb over. It fell on a farm, which was pretty much planned. So before we did the flight, we checked where the wind was going and what the atmospheric conditions were, and we did it so we knew more or less where it would land. And then we went and picked it up, got the SD card out with all the video of the flight. And I can tell you that those Aqua Dragons, they were just eggs, okay, not real live Aqua Dragons, but those Aqua Dragons do hatch. So the packet that you have there comes with a little certificate that talks about the flight and when they went up and how long they were up for and the date and the engineer, the sort of like the different people that were involved. I also signed it as well. And there's a limited edition amount of this particular product. Then the eggs have actually been into space. So that's pretty cool.
So next
yeah,
we're going to hatch these.
So what we do know is even if they're in space for a very short period of time, in space there's higher levels of radiation. And we thought maybe the eggs would be affected. So when the eggs came back down, we took them and we tested them again before we put them into the products and sold them to consumers around the world to make sure that they were fine. And they hatched just as well as normal. And they're, growing and having babies and swimming and eating just as normal. So at least when you send them up into space as eggs, there doesn't seem to be a problem. But the experiment of sending them up live it's a step further in complexity, isn't it?
Camden,
Did it almost reach the Carmen line?
you said, did it almost reach the Kármán line,
The Kármán line?
which is when you enter into space technically?
Yes, so I'm not sure if they went past it, but it would have been, that's at the line where the helium expands and then the balloon would come down. So the line to near space. Yep.
Anybody else have any questions? I mean, the good news is we can ask questions if we come up with them as we're going through this. It's kind of scary to us because we just released babies across the school. So now we're hoping that the other 130 kids can help, oxygenate and make sure to grow. And if not, we have plenty of eggs that we can hatch. Thank you.
Yes, we sent some eggs. Yeah.
We're going to do more tanks too. Fourth grade has 3 already? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That was like,
So everybody was kind of like finding a back to oxygen.
Some people kept scooping them.
okay, well,
What?
they're learning.
Well,
Somebody actually sucked up an egg.
All right, let's listen.
So I've got a couple of questions. What about after the experiment, when you've got loads of Aqua Dragons, what's your plan? Are you going to keep them as pets at the school? Are families going to adopt them? What's going to happen afterwards?
I think we should give them to families.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I want some.
So I think we're gonna have way more Aqua Dragons than people in this room because we're gonna be setting up even more tanks, right? And we want to keep some tanks for next year because we're going to bring some in. Maybe we can have a caveat, like you can have the dragons in the water, but you got to bring in your own tank. and they can figure it out that way. But that's a great
Mason
question.
jars are very good for that. You can have a mason jar.
Oh, like people put canning things in and just punch holes in the top of it. Is that, or just leave the top off?
Yeah,
Or
the
le-
top
or
off
leave
is
the top
okay.
Would there be any, speaking of this, if we put some in our, we have a couple of tanks that look like this, it's empty, like that's fine, right? As
That's
long as people
fine.
don't put stuff in it. Okay, because we have a bunch of
Absolutely.
these if we want to grow more eggs. But that, that's a question that we haven't really thought about. I mean, we could even have, you guys could have some competition to win your own Aqua Dragon family with the school, or,
Oh yeah, we can have.
that'll be fun, or to adopt them out. Like, of course, we'll make sure you guys, if you want
Aqua
them.
Dragon talent show where people get to keep Aqua Dragons and then they gotta train them and switch wins another family of Aqua Dragons.
Exactly.
We could make it so that to support that somebody dresses up as like an Aqua Dragon for a mascot.
So
The Aqua Dragon.
I gotta be honest, guys, I looked online to see if there was a blow up Aqua Dragon costume because I thought that would be really fun. I didn't find one. I found a dinosaur, but we'll have to figure that out.
That's
Yeah.
funny. So if in the course of doing all this, how he's going to adopt them out and how and where, if you come up with any ideas for new tanks, you can tell us about it.
Oh.
Maybe we can develop them into real tanks, or choose one to develop into a real tank that we could actually bring to market. That would also
Now,
be pretty cool.
That's cool, and maybe that's the contest.
We do like
Kids have to develop a
we
tank.
do like tubes that are connected to it, like hamster tubes.
Ask her that question. I don't know.
Or play
So-
Aqua
like
hamster.
the zero.
Oh my gosh, growing everywhere. Go ahead, Emily. Ask your question.
Could there be like tubes with like that go up like that they can swim through? Like
We-
Like
We had
Like hamsters.
We had a design like that proposed to us from a toy company that we were going to work with in the past, and I didn't test it, but I had the opinion that it might be that the Aqua Dragons. Let me go back a step. Their design was like 3 balls, like this, 3 spheres that were clear, and they were connected by these tubes. Now, my concern was because, Aqua Dragons need the oxygen. And when they're a little bit bigger, they will swim up to the top to come up and sort of skim along the top to breathe. When they're small, they rely on oxygen in the water column. So that's why it's important, especially at the beginning, that you use the pipette and you oxygenate them, or you tip them from one recipient to another. When they become adults, they're stronger and they can swim up to the top. But my worry on that particular tank design with the 3 kind of spheres was that if they ended up getting down into the bottom one, or the second to the bottom one, they might not be smart enough to be able to find their way back out and up to where the oxygen is, or the oxygen that might stay in the top of that section might, it will end up not having enough oxygen in it. The air wouldn't have enough oxygen in it. So I was worried that tank design, even though I think it's super cool, that might not be functional for them.
That makes sense. It's a good question, though.
Mhm.
Maddie?
What if you added like holes in each sphere so that you can oxygenate each sphere?
So they
Then
would
they'd
have to.
they'd have to be like in a row, because otherwise if we had them like this but we had a hole here, the pressure of the water
Pressure.
that's in the top tank would make it come out, because water's always looking for its lowest point, right? So
Yeah.
but it's possible to do if you do them side by side, or around in a circle. That's a good idea.
Yeah, good question. Wyatt?
Would there ever be like a product where you could carry around Aqua Dragons like a necklace or ring or watch?
Kind of cool.
And then you can put Aqua Dragon
Aquaware.
in it.
Aquaware?
I have
Aquaware. That's great.
From the
That's-
mouth of babes.
That's a really good idea. That's a
love
really
it.
good idea. We should start thinking about it. You guys have some more ideas, and we'll see if we can develop them into real products. But I think that would be cool for people to have a portable Aqua Dragons wearable kind of case of some kind.
When I fly on this flight, I'm gonna have a nice little dragon scale purse with my my Aqua Dragons with the lids all open and it'll be a test of your aquaware. It's not jewelry yet, but we'll get there. All right, Andrew.
So how do pipettes actually oxygenate them? Because when the air bubbles go in, they just rise up to the top and pop.
Mhm.
So how does that give them oxygen?
That's right. Okay, that's a really good question. I think what happens is that all of the surface of those bubbles that you can see are letting tiny little amounts of oxygen into the water column. So even though it looks like the bubble just goes in and comes back out, actually the water column is getting more air into it.
Good question. Camden.
Like it's long on like one side, but on the other side, you make it like thicker so you can like add your own decorations.
So you're talking about the tank is long this way, right? But can you add width here?
Yeah. Make it like
Okay,
Oh,
you can. That's another good question. So what do Aqua Dragons like? What would they really like? Is they would probably like a big surface area so that the oxygen can get into the water, and not so deep so they don't have to go so far to eat. That's probably what they like. But when we test that out as a product, it's hard to see, you know, if the depth of the water is the murkiness of the water makes them hard to see. And that's why the tanks are wide and not deep, so that you can see through. And even if there's food in the water column, which needs to be there so that they can filter feed, you can still see clearly.
That's awesome. Good question. Leo, do you have a question or no?
It's a whole thing.
Okay, Wyatt.
How did you like modify the sea monkey or
So-
It's
Branchen?
a trade
Okay.
secret.
So I can give you some hints here, but I can't tell you everything because it's part of really confidential information that we don't want our competitors to know. But I can tell you that there's 7 different types of Artemia in the world, and some of them are living in tropical areas, and some of them are living like in parts of Russia and China that are very cold. And some of them come from America, from the Great Salt Lake. And they're very, very, very similar, but they have tiny little differences, like maybe one's just a bit bigger than the other, or their anatomy is just slightly different from the other. And so I don't know exactly which eggs the sea monkeys are using, but we are using different types of eggs in our packets, so that whether you're in a warm place or a cold place in the world, you can still have your Aqua Dragons hatching.
Awesome.
And then on top of that, also, it's not just the eggs themselves. So we didn't genetically modify them. They're not bred to be special. They're actually, you know, as nature created them. But the formula that we have to put them in, which are the salts and the other ingredients, need to replicate, you know, the same kind of environment as they have in nature. And it's quite difficult to do that. So what we did is we developed the formula to work with bottled water, and then we give you everything you need in the packet to sustain life as if it's marine life from there. So I can only speak about what the Aqua Dragons formula is, but we worked with the biologist for 3 years testing lots of different algae and marine extracts and making sure that the algae were small enough so that the Aqua Dragons' mouths could, you know, ingest them and so on. So yeah, lots of work, lots of interesting. You guys are asking like the super difficult confidential answer questions here.
Of course they are. This is the group that definitely has the critical thinking skills.
Yes.
Maddie, go ahead.
Are there any in polar regions?
Good question. Are there Aqua Dragons in polar regions?
I don't know.
Cold.
That's another experiment we should go and work out together. We'll have to go on a polar expedition.
You might have to find another teacher. I don't know about Antarctica.
Yeah, I don't really like the cold. I know somebody who would know, though. You know who would know? John Bozinov. We work with a photographer. He's called John Bozinov. If you want to look him up, he works for National Geographic and different really high-end photography projects with nature. and he's been to, I think it was the South Pole actually. He's been to live like 3 months filming penguins in the
Oh,
icy like 50 degrees Celsius below zero, like when you just breathe out and everything freezes completely. So he might know. We'd have to, I might ask him, and I'm going to write a note and I'm going to let you know.
I have a question, and they might not like my question. If you put them in the freezer, like if I were to take this, just hear me out. If I were to take this tank and put it in a freezer,
Mhm.
right, freeze it solid, and then let it thaw,
Mhm.
would they be alive?
I don't think the Aqua Dragons would survive, but I think the eggs would survive. And the
Okay.
reason why I think the eggs would survive is because when we buy our eggs, because it's a seasonal thing that you can buy, there's a yearly harvest. We put the eggs into cold storage and they're kept at below zero conditions until we're ready to turn them into product. And then we turn them into product and then they get shipped out as fast as possible so that they're kind of like fresh.
Gotcha.
And the way that they're sort of kept in best conditions is stable and cold. And when the eggs get too warm, they can start to degrade. So yeah, I think if you had eggs in the tank that they would do okay, and I think the Aqua Dragons themselves would probably
not.
expire.
Don't worry, I'm not going to do it. Just hypothetically asking. Emily,
Is it possible to squish the eggs?
you mean like, what do you mean by squish?
Like
Like break them open
Yeah.
if we squeeze them?
Or is it you can't?
Because they're so tiny and you can't.
I think if you were to squeeze them in your fingers, nothing would happen. I think they're so small and your fingers are kind of squashy enough that they would be okay. They're pretty hardy. They're like a tiny grain of salt. But under the right conditions, yes, I'm sure they could be squished.
Quiet.
what would happen if you put them in like hot water and tried to grow them?
How hot?
Yeah, they're like shrimp.
Boiling?
How do you make shrimp?
Oh, like not boiling, but
Like warm bath
Water?
water?
Yeah.
Like bath water?
yeah, would warmer water affect them? 120 degrees.
That's
So
hot.
the Aqua Dragons that live in tropical conditions also live in salt pans, so shallow lakes, which are very, very salty. And I think the water gets really warm in those salt lakes. And I think I think in about degrees, I think the water could get up to about 30 degrees Celsius. I think that's about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So I think at that temperature, they would still be okay. And I think if you get hotter than that, it would be harmful to them. Yeah.
We have about 7 minutes because these guys have regular school to go to. Let me take Camden real quick.
You breed Artemia salina with Artemia monica?
You have to say that other scientific name again louder.
Did you breed Artemia salina with Artemia monica?
Oh no, I haven't bred Artemia monocle. Have you?
Have you? How did you know about that?
Because I thought that's how they made like their unique.
So
Oh,
we
you-
had quite the debate when I brought in here Aqua Dragons and Sea Monkeys because they're the same thing. The package is just different. And it was quite the debate. Like we had people like die hard. It's the same thing. They're just trying to get us to buy a different product. And then we started hatching and growing them and we realized they're definitely not the same thing. And Camden was on the team that took a deep dive into proving that they were not, right? And so he found some scientific names and he had his theories. So
Okay, so I can tell you that in the Aqua Dragons formula, we only use Artemia salina, not the monocle one.
all right, last question, Andrew.
So I'm really 2 questions.
Okay.
But is there so you said that you genetically mutated them. So how come there are aqua dragons and lakes and things?
Okay, so we didn't genetically mutate them. We're working with the animal as it exists in nature. Okay, so Sea Monkey said that they did some kind of mutation, and I don't know if that's true or not. So I wasn't there when that was developed. But we work with the animal as it exists in nature, and that's how it's also possible to harvest their eggs every year. So in certain conditions, so in the sea, it's not good conditions, but in certain salt lakes, where the water is quite calm. It's possible, there's like a period where they make so many eggs that the eggs kind of float up to the surface and they kind of sit on the top of the surface like a film. And then it's possible to put, it's kind of like a rubber long arm, and you turn it all, you kind of circle it all the way around all these eggs, and then you pull it in, and then a machine will kind of skim all the eggs off top, and then they go and get cleaned, and then we put them in with the rest of the formula, and then we put them into the packet.
Oh yeah, and so also, is there a specific amount of room that aqua dragons need to live?
That's a good question, which I'm testing at the moment. So I have another company that I'm working with in America, and they have this brand. It's called the World's Smallest. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. And they have
checkouts or
they have like the world's smallest Barbie, the world's smallest Slinky, the world's smallest Nerf gun, and all sorts of things. And they want to do a world's smallest Aqua Dragons tank. And I'm testing Aqua Dragons. Yeah, you could wear them. That would be cool. And so I'm testing Aqua Dragons at the moment. In my kitchen, I have like 20 tanks set up. If you want, I can go and get you one to show you, with all different amounts of water, 50, 60, 70, 80 milliliters, and different amounts of formula in. And guess what? They all hatched. So it looks like they can live in a tiny little amount of water that's even, much smaller than a cup of water.
jewelry. I know, the aqua wear.
Yes, totally.
Symbols
We
back
can
here.
make our own product to Aqua and get billions of dollars.
Habits of an innovator.
Totally.
Like what, we have 4 minutes. What would you like to, I mean, I see we still have hands. Do you have anything that you would like to get accomplished, or do you want to take
Nothing.
questions? What do you want to do?
Yeah, any more questions? Let's just
Okay.
these kids, you are so smart. You're impressing me with questions that even working in this business for many years, nobody has thought to ask. So I'm just blown away. What else?
Alright.
What else have you got, guys?
Miles.
Can you make it so that aqua dragons don't reproduce and
Oh.
longer?
So could you make it so that
Just make
you're
it
not going to
all-
get more aqua
Make
dragons?
it
Also,
all
it's like a
yeah,
dog.
like if there's
It's like a
tiny
dog.
space and you don't want any more aqua dragons filling up this small space like this big, then is there a way you can make the aqua dragons live longer and not reproduce?
So have a longer
Make it
lifespan,
all one.
but not.
Okay.
Can you
About-
can you do gender in any way?
Um,
Don't know.
There's a way to do that. I wouldn't do it for ethical reasons, and it would be expensive. But I know that the different insects have been grown that are unable to reproduce, and they do that with mosquitoes. They release mosquitoes so that the mosquitoes will reproduce with these mosquitoes, and then they won't be able to have babies, and that will end, when there's too many mosquitoes around and it becomes like a plague. So I think the science technology is available to do it. But I wouldn't want to do that with the Aqua Dragons, because I think, unless there's a very, very, very special reason, these kind of things, there's a lot of complex ethics about doing genetic
Yes.
changes to animals.
That's a good question. Wyatt.
Would you ever make like a clothes brand of aqua dragons? Like
And
clothes
so
brand?
what brand?
They would like to know if there's clothing with aqua dragons, or if you have any plans on making a merchandise brand, like, you can buy shirts or whatever with aqua dragons.
We'd like to make an Aqua Dragons plush toy, and then maybe t-shirts and different things. Yeah. And there's already an Aqua Dragons pen and stickers and different things, so you might see some of those at some point.
I love it.
Aqua dragon video.
Do we know where the name came from? Did we ask where the name came from?
They look like dragons in the water.
Their hypothesis is they look like dragons and they live in the water. Is it deeper than that, or is
It's
that?
deeper than that, actually. Yes, they do, and that's one of the reasons. I was the person who made the name, and I wanted a name that would work really well in all different languages. And so it's important to choose words with the Latin root so that it doesn't just work, say, in English, but it also works in French, in Spanish, in Portuguese, and some other European languages. And if you do look up online, you might see the word like aqua also exists in either spelt the same or very similar. In French, it's also aqua. In Spanish, it's agua with a G. And Italian, it's like aqua with a CQ, I think. So but it sounds pretty much the same. So it makes the name recognizable and easy to pronounce for people in, different places around the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Maddie, real quick, and then we gotta
So-
get you back.
You said you had to wait and for the eggs to like put to the top, then collect them, then you had to buy them. Couldn't you just like get the Aqua Dragons, then put them in a tank, wait for them to reproduce? Because I think there are some eggs left here.
But are they eggs that we've dumped in?
I don't know.
They're red.
Yeah,
So we didn't get to the 5 different ways to reproduce. It's going to blow their minds a little bit. There's 5 different ways they can have eggs. They can have live birth. I mean, they're pretty fascinating. So we'll talk about that more.
Mhm.
I don't think. I mean, they do breathe and eat through their.
They can be
Eat.
I'm open, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
That'd be kind of
So I have to get these guys, I don't know, and I know you guys have a lot going on today too. I gotta get them back to class, but what do you say to the Aqua Dragons?
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you.
And we would love to touch base again closer to the experiment. How long do you have like 10 minutes now or do you,
Yep.
okay, so you guys have snack. If you have more questions and you would like to return, you can go get your snack and ask your teacher to come back here. If you're not at snack, don't ask to come back here until you go to snack. Does that make sense? And we'll see maybe till quarter after 2:15. It'll get loud. 1 second. I'm gonna mute for a minute.
No worries. No worries.
Yes, you can ask one quick question. But I want you to go check in and get your snack. Go ahead, Camden.
Hey, Camden.
It's loud with stools in here. All right.
Okay, so can you like try to partner with like YouTube's, because you have a YouTube channel and they do like plushies and like toys for YouTube channels.
What's
Mhm.
the
It's called YouTube's.
U2s?
You too. Well, I haven't heard of them.
How's it spelled?
I think it's like YOUTOOS or something.
YOUTOOS.
Maybe it's
We'll have a look. We've done lots of different collaborations over the years, and we talk to lots of different people who have different YouTube channels and influencer channels, and we often send out product to them, and then they do videos that they put on their TikTok or their YouTube, and that's one of the ways that the product has become very famous. So yes, we do collaborations, but I haven't heard of that one before. We'll have to have a look.
That's awesome. Thank you. If you want to stay, go get your snack and come back.
Did you say this?
Yes, they put the link in. Yeah.
Did you say this?
Right here is the expert. You can ask that question.
Are they able to have live birth?
Yes, they do have live births.
Human would be, but then they're also able to have eggs.
Yes, and there's a
So-
reason for that. So this is, I know you're going to have a class about this with Mrs. Tucker, but when they just hatch as live babies, that's when the conditions in the tank are ideal. So when the water is perfect, it's a good temperature, it's the right amount of salt, there's enough food. The Aqua Dragons know to have live births because it's perfect for the babies. If it's getting too salty or not salty enough, or there's not enough food, or there's some kind of thing that tells them that the conditions for life are hostile, they will they will kind of lay an egg, which will either hatch soon or not hatch until it's been completely dried and then come back in contact with water. And that
Oh, wow.
The drying out process is to ensure that the aqua dragons that live in salt pans around the world can survive drought periods.
That's fascinating. So
And
they
if
come
you-
out.
If you go on our YouTube channel, we have a short, and in that short, you can see the babies being born.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I don't know how,
question.
like, how did you get that on camera?
I have a
That's
question.
John Bozinov did it. So he's the guy that's the wildlife photographer. So he has very special equipment where he can do these macro videos. And obviously he has a lot of patience as well, because
Yeah.
it would be complex because they're moving around the tank the whole time to be able to get such good footage.
Come on. No, you can come in. Sorry, my recording sign's on the door. You can push it shut.
I have a
We-
question. They can give live birth, then aren't they a mammal?
No, so mammals don't just do live births, but they also
Give milk.
give milk. That's right. And so the live birth here, the babies don't need the mother for milk. There's no milk. So they would, as soon as they're sort of born, they're already filter feeding from the water.
It's good though. I like that you're asking the science questions of what,
Mm.
how we're taught to classify and, you know, that's really good. Do you have questions later? You just came back because you are intrigued?
Yeah.
Okay. We got another one. This is Braden. Braden.
Hello.
Braden's in 5th grade. Braden broke his arm, so he hangs out with me during recess. So he doesn't hurt his arm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's rough when you break your arm. Oh,
Yeah, it is. We actually have some questions.
Go ahead.
We had some questions from our community, and they wanted to ask you the questions, and maybe Amy can step in if you're not sure. But some of them I'm pretty sure you can answer because you're kind of Aqua Dragon experts right now.
Mhm.
Some are very just congratulating you guys on saying great experiment, and then some of them are quite basic. So I wonder if you know this one. So they're asking what water you need to use to grow Aqua Dragons.
There's you can't use the
Distilled water, because
You can't use distilled water.
no, you can't. You don't use it because they
you don't
need all the
put
minerals.
salt
Like
in it because when you put the eggs in, it already has salt with the mixed in with the eggs, which was a good idea. Let's use this.
Which
don't
is
use distilled water.
drinking water, right? Like
Drinking.
Aquafina or
We have to have something that we can drink. If we can't drink it, then they can't live in it.
Perfect.
Yep, that's
So
a great
bottled
rule of
water.
thumb.
And then also they ask, can you add just a little bit of eggs and save the rest to grow more later? Or should you put the whole packet of eggs in?
You put the whole packet of water in there because there's also salt with it, and you need all the salt to be able to have it.
yeah, we made that mistake, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We tried to take one packet and spread it between a couple tanks when we first started with all of this. And yeah,
The
the success,
salinity would have been too low. That's
it was
right.
bad. Yep. And then we had a really big tank. We had like an aquarium tank, right? Remember the ones we put in the aquarium tank and nothing hatched because we had split that and then the salinity was off. And so, yeah, it's definitely important to make sure you use the right amount of water.
Yeah,
Great.
and then that's a very good point. And then Space for Teachers had a question for you guys. Maybe you need to answer it later, but let's see. If the Earth, this is about your experiment more. So if the Earth's gravity water pushes up on the fish, so buoyancy, helping them swim, so the Aqua Dragons in this case, do you think the Aqua Dragons will swim differently? Obviously, I think this is one of your questions in the experiment yourself.
They already swim kind of differently from other fish.
How?
They're they go a pattern.
You first. They make a pattern.
It also says
Do you have a thought about how they're going to be different when they go into microgravity or hypergravity?
might be backwards.
They might go backwards. What do you think?
I think in hypergravity, they're gonna all like go to the bottom and they're gonna swim slower because there's more gravity and it's harder to move.
So we talked a lot about the microgravity aspect, right? Like the space-like environment, but because the plane is doing parabolas, naturally they're going to be exposed to that hypergravity where they're going to be having some positive G-force on them. So thinking about that they might swim more because it's pushing down, whereas in hypergravity, you guys had said it would be move less, right? Because they would be,
They might be like this.
yeah,
Just chilling out, like fly.
like when people skydive.
It's not like they're just going down from no gravity. They're also going to be the change effect differently.
The change from hypergravity to microgravity. That is true. The parabolas, it's about 13 to 18 seconds of microgravity, but in between that, like that's just the down, and then so it's repetitive, right? And every 5 parabolas, they fly for 3 minutes straight and level. So that might give some time to kind of level them off, right, before they start another parabola. But that is going to be interesting. So it's not going to be exactly like space where it's a constant microgravity. It's going to be changing the pressure.
That's going to be interesting to see because
It
we
will.
don't know. But if you think about it, under the water, there's a lot of pressure under the water, and the pressure builds up under the water really quickly. So have you ever gone snorkeling and at the top of the water, and you go down to like the bottom of the pool or the bottom of the seabed if you're looking at coral or something, and like even just like a little way down, just 1 meter, your ears are feeling a lot of pressure. So I think that that means that the Aqua Dragons are used to pressure kind of change, like high pressure underwater.
That's a good thing.
Mm.
That's a good thing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have, do you have any other questions? They have about 3 minutes and then they have to go learn, I think, math.
I'm okay. No, I'm good. I'm glad we got through the questions that people wrote on the post. So thank you for coming, and thank you for all the questions and all the stuff that we had to think about and work through together. That was amazing.
They challenge me every day. This class, it's the one class where I get nervous because I feel like every day it's something different, and it's great though because we learn together. So it'll be fun. I guarantee you there'll be more to come. I fly out of town in about 2 hours. I'm going to St. Louis, Missouri to present. Our school just won an international award for our STEM program, which is great. So we're going to accept that, and then we're going to teach other teachers. It's like a workshop conference. So I'll be out until Saturday teaching other teachers from across the world, really. And then next week we'll be doing more hatching, taking care of the babies. Then we have spring break, and then there'll be 2 weeks before the experiment that it'll be really like, I'll probably be blowing you up with what's happening and questions, and I'll keep pictures coming as we put tanks in. I have a bunch more from yesterday. So cute. The Aqua Dragon song parents are like, what are you doing? They're getting in the car going, Aqua Dragon. So whoever wrote it, oh my gosh, whoever wrote the song is a genius because it sticks in your head all day. And when we're putting the tank together, they were like, 1, pour bottled water in. And the kids are like singing it as we're like making the tank. So it's been awesome. And thank you. The tanks, like I said, like we have 1 in each room here. We're going to put some in the office, but we've been also involving other schools. So our middle school life science 7th grade class is really excited. And then in Pennsylvania, I'm from up there. They have 2 teachers. So their classes are doing it virtually, following along. So we are definitely spreading the Aqua Dragon love and the egg packets too. People get their tanks, we'll keep going with it. So
that's fab. Do we know where the takeoff airport is going to be yet, or is it still up in the air?
I am dying. It is still up in the air.
Okay.
No matter what time of day, I promise you I will text you.
Okay.
Because I know you want to get tickets, and I mean we have to get tickets. I need to talk to the airport wherever we're flying out of to TSA. But yeah, I'll let you know. We just had a meeting Monday night, and they had said that it was still up in the air. So the date is the same. It's just where the aircraft will be located.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right.
Updated. Sorry.
Okay,
I know that's not fun.
Yeah. No. When as soon as we'll organize it. So that's great. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I'll let you go and get onto your next classes. Have a great day, everybody.
So say bye.
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 Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Beck. See you later.
Aqua Dragons.